Here we are. Let's see if anybody's waiting at all. I think a couple people said they were going to be there, so that's good. One person is watching.
Okie dokie.
Hello, one person.
One person is watching.
Okay, so do we want to start? Or...
I'm good to start whenever you are. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hello. This is the very first IndigAthon live show, even though we've been doing this for years. It's just because we haven't had like the time is just never lined up until today. But hello, it's Michelle from Thor Wants Another Letter. I hope that you're all doing very well. I'm really excited about this. Also very nervous. It tends to happen to me every time I do any kind of a live show. I'm just like, okay. So today we're gonna just like chat and talk about like the group book and like the fun stuff that we read. That's a good time, really was. And then you know me, and so like we can go around and do introductions or like whatever you can say whatever you want to.
Okay, cool. Hi. If you don't know me, I'm Bear. From the channel EtTuBrody. Michelle and I co-created the IndigAthon 3 years ago. It's 2019. Yeah, and it's always my fault that we can't have a live show. So yes, it is. Don't roll your eyes. So, yeah, I read a lot of YA and adult horror. I've shifted my channel more towards horror lately, but there's always a focus on authors of color, indigenous authors, and queer voices on my channel. So, hi.
Okay. Can you hear me? I had to switch because it was echoey. Okay, awesome. Hi, my name is Kim. I am Satowa or Tobacco Clan from the village of Tewa. I am from the Hopi Nation, and I am an Indigenous booktuber. I'm mainly focused on Indigenous authored reads or reads, BIPOC reads. And I have a booktube channel. I have an Instagram. I try to keep up with as much as I can. I feel like I'm so surprised by, especially the Indigenous book community. They'll read and then they'll be posting like the very next day. So it's like, wow. I'll be lucky if I can post something like once every 2 weeks or something. So booktube channel, same thing. I mainly read Indigenous authored lit. So yeah. And thank you very much, both of you, for having me here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm Oglala Lakota, but like I forget every time you introduce yourself. I'm like, oh yeah, I could say that.
Yeah, same. I'm reconnecting Cherokee, living on Seminole land in Orlando, Florida.
So we were talking about it before, how many books we read. I read 14, but I only read 13 from Indigenous authors. The other one I read was J.R.R. Tolkien. So it was like going along and then Pikachu and then just keep going. just random book, and then we just kept going. And then Soren participated in Book It. So like I also was reading him, like half the things that I read were kids books, and then like all of them were the Indigenous lit that I have, because I was like, we're gonna start off really strong, and then Calvin got to read him like whatever else we had at home. And I think the most favorite one that I read was probably Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boley.
Nice.
So I think I read around 15 books last month. It started out really strong, and I was doing like a book a day, and then we kind of tapered off. It was lots of poetry, but like middle grade, I had like a really good time with middle grade last month. I read The Barren Grounds by David A. Robertson, which is like I think a Cree portal fantasy, and that was really fun. And then The Skeleton Man by Joseph Brushak, which is one of my favorites from childhood. That's always a good one. I read that one in the sequel. So those were probably my favorites, my highlights from last month.
Wow, I had a really good time. I read 19 books. Wait, yeah, 19 books, and 16 of them were Indigenous authored lit. I think my favorites were um, The Removed by Brandon Hobson. Wow, holy crap! I hybrid read this book with audiobook, and Gary Farmer is one of the narrators, and it completely blew me away. So this is one book that I really enjoyed. A Mind Spread Out on the Ground. This is a nonfiction book by Alicia Elliott. This book, um, I just had so many feelings. There's just so much packed into this book, including um, what it like her experiences with being biracial, sexual assault, um, what it's like to have non-indigenous authors write Native American characters in books. So that was a really powerful chapter. I think another one was her experiences with trauma and her relationship with her family, her Native and her non-Native families. I don't know. There's a lot in this book. Um, I also read The Heartbeat of Wounded Meat. This actually wasn't on my original TBR, but a very awesome historical read from a Native perspective, but it's kind of different genres of like memoir, historical, not historical fiction, but uh, other him interviewing people like going around the country and getting their experiences and then relating that back to history and how trying to prove a point of how indigenous communities are still here, they're still thriving, and so this one was a good read too. Healer of the Water Monster, probably a really awesome middle grade read by Navajo author Brian Young, or Diane author. This one was pretty amazing as well. And I think this one was good too. So Tara June Lynch, The Yield, fiction book. I think she's Wiradjuri author from colonial Australia. This one was a pretty awesome book as well. But and then I read another of my favorites, One Native Life by Richard Wagners, and Islands of Decolonial Love by Leanne Patassimosic Simpson. Wow. I, I didn't have the physical. I read it through audio, but that is a book I definitely need to have in my library, like yesterday. So those were pretty amazing reads, and yeah, awesome. And I read more, but I think I'll just talk about those later.
Yeah, I I that was really great. I was like, wow, you read a lot of really good stuff. Um I did not get to some of those, like The Removed or Healer of the Water Monster, like all, and then the entirety of Darcy Little Badger's thing was on my TBR and I didn't get to it, but like it's on, like it's priority, but I just haven't read it yet. I tried to start out strong and I started out with like the one that I was anticipating the most in like feels, and so that was Heartberries, but then it was a lot and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is what people meant when they were like it's a lot." And so I was like, "Oh no, what did I do?" But then it was fine because I went back to the kids' books that I was reading, and then I read Notable Native People, which was amazing. And I found Frank Waln, and What Made the Red Man Red is literally on my like favorites right now. And probably aside from my favorite, and I read Winter Counts, I read Res Dogs by Joseph Brushak, and that one like totally like came, I don't know, that one came out of nowhere because I was like, I know it's there and I'll just read it, and it's gonna be cute, it'll be nice. No, this one was like feels, it was so good. And if I had a physical copy, and if I could like highlight things, I would be highlighting like on at least every single page.
Yeah, I read The Removed last month for my that's what my patrons voted for our horror book club, because people kept telling me that The Removed was like the Only Good Indians, and y'all know that's my favorite. Kim, am I wrong in saying that this book was mismarketed because it's not like the Only Good Indians? Like I love it,
I I
but
think I think it had like haunting feels, but not in a perspective of horror. I think it was haunting feels in the perspective of um, kind of not necessarily history repeating itself, but history having an impact on the injustices we still face today, and how those long standing um, like how long-standing grief can have an effect on how it impacts native communities. But yeah, I think it was whoever said that Togi was like they're removed, but I think it is in a sense of like haunting in a way that's uh, how our past kind of is still lingering in terms of how we experience different kinds of trauma, and especially historical trauma. I think though that especially that ancestral narrator
mm,
was really powerful. I think there were some times when I would listen to him and it would be devastating, and then other times it was like yeah, like get you all hyped up, and then other times it was just like I felt like crying, and I would just be like nodding my head, agreeing with every single thing he's saying, and then he would just end it like I think what how he would I think he says what aho or kind of like, and mine was just like yeah, like I agree with you, you know. So it was, but I don't know who maybe thought that, but it yeah, it's I think Stephen Graham Jones has a way of um commenting on society, not just not indigenous society or peoples, but on overall oppressive white colonial mentality and how it affects us. But I feel like Hobson was more put it out there, put it in your face. But I think Stephen Graham Jones has a way of contextualizing that kind of his writing and doing that. So yeah, but I still really enjoyed it. Um, I tried to read Where the Dead Sit Talking, and the narrator was just, I think, yeah. So I was like, okay, I think I need to read this. And I found it. I found it in my sea of moving boxes books. So I was like, yeah, I found it. So I think I'm gonna read the physical copy rather than the audiobook. I think I'll have a better time with it.
I read the physical of Where the Dead Sit Talking for I think the first IndigAthon. I think it was 2019 that I read it, and I enjoyed it a lot. Like I enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed The Removed, but like for different reasons. You know what I mean?
And I'm not looking. I really don't want to read the back, so I just kind of want to
Girl,
jump. Yeah, I just want to jump into it, and I did the same thing with the removed. I just heard police violence, and that's all I wanted to know. I remember reading the back, but I wasn't like absorbing it like all the way in my brain. Um, and I was like, oh, I don't remember what this is about, but I don't care. I'm just gonna jump into it. So
Yeah, I always think like with the middle grade reads, I always pick like a bunch of them, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get through them really fast. And then I like with Res Dogs, I start reading them, and I'm like, oh, I want to absorb every single sentence at the slowest pace possible because it puts me in my feels. And I think it's just like my inner child reading things and being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It's amazing.
So one that I read the audiobook for, and it was kind of like a middle grade nonfiction, and it's in like the Nevertheless She Persisted series, which I think is Chelsea Clinton, but it was like Chelsea Clinton wrote the foreword, and then Christine Day wrote the actual book, and it was about Maria Tallchief, who, for people who don't know in the chat, was like the first indigenous like prima ballerina who like toured the world and stuff. So that was like a surprising one that I was like, oh, I want to read more nonfiction. It's here, and it's in like a really accessible middle grade style. But like I ended up like really really liking it. It was a good
The recommended read I read from Bear was Tommy Pico's nature poem. Such an incredible book. Wow. I actually read it backwards. Didn't he write IRL first, then nature poem? So I don't know if they're kind of like you read them in order, but I read nature poem first, then I read IRL. But nature poem, wow. it's there's like times I had with that book where it was funny. I was like laughing out loud, like still laughing, and he's reading or he's doing his poetry, and I had to rewind it because I missed so much because of what he was saying was so freaking hilarious. But then also I was just now telling Bear earlier, it's such a roller coaster of a read because there's so many emotions and topics and issues he covers and experiences from his life, and but it's not disjointed. It transitions so well for him to go from like some place of power, empowerment, and just true self reflection to a place where he's being like stereotyped. And then to go to this like really funny res moment he has, or a like indigenous funny thought. So I had such a great time with that book. I can't wait to read the next two. What were they called? Feed and Junk? Was it Junk and Feed?
So I know there's IRL, Junk, Feed, and Nature Poem, but I'm not sure what the actual like reading order is. I know that they're like it's like a series of poetry and it all follows the same person, but I'm not sure what the exact reading order is. I read them all out of order.
I think they all stand pretty well on their own. I mean, but yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to read the other two. I think for Michelle's recommendations, I did read. Well, I didn't read all of Winter Counts, but there was parts I kind of revisited in that book because he did state that he was making a second book, and then there's also something else he wrote about Virgil Wounded Horse. So I was kind of going back and rereading some of those really funny moments, especially. I can't remember what the character's name was, but um, he was saying something about like, oh yeah, I'm gonna work at the casino and just all this. I think it was his friend. He's just this real res friend. But I remember reading like that chapter. Yeah, the remove is pretty incredible. The remove was awesome. And then what else did I read? Oh, I read The Seed Keeper by Diane Wilson. I don't know how to feel about that book just yet because it is definitely a slow paced read. Nothing and it's a fiction, a literary fiction, and I mean the cover is pretty incredible. But I think I read this with a book group for my work or with my work, and we were reading like chapter by like how you have assigned pages, and sometimes I don't really like to read like that where you're reading assigned pages because then I feel like I'm missing so much. But I think that book, I think it was a really cool comparison. Some things that I could compare to my own culture because heirloom seed keeping and planting is like a really big part of our culture. But I don't know. I'm still trying to like kind of gather my thoughts on that one.
So, do we want to talk about this really quick? How are you feeling? Like I mean, it's my favorites. I mean, this time I was like making notes in it and things. I one of my friends, Margaret from the Word Nerd, was reading it at like the same time I was, kind of, and she was like messaging me, like, what about this and what about this, and I was like, but it was things that like we had like similar thoughts, not like her asking me things about like indigenous things.
So I gave it 4 stars. I liked it. I liked what it did. I thought it was fun, and I think this would be a good book for people who haven't read a lot of Native Lit, who like need to get introduced to things, because the character of Apple is literally getting introduced to all of these things that are like part of her culture and stuff. So I think it's a good like starter book. Like I would recommend it to people who are like looking to get into Native literature. Um, I like the characters. I thought it was fun how she gets introduced to this whole other side of family that she's never met before, and they just like welcome her with open arms. Then you have like the little drama with her mom's ex-boyfriend, the situation. The ending, I got really mad at you, Michelle. I got really mad at you about that ending. Because I did not think that was going to happen, and I got upset.
Oh,
I was like,
I didn't warn anybody.
mm-mm.
I was just like, a bad thing happens.
Well, no, you were like, trigger warning, like, can we talk spoilers now? Are we free to talk spoilers?
I
mean,
haven't I haven't read it because
Oh,
I couldn't find it, but that's fine. If you guys want to talk spoilers, that's fine.
well, like, Michelle had said, like, trigger warning, like, child death, and I was like, I didn't think it was going to be, like, the one child character that I liked. Like, I didn't think it was going to be this sweet, innocent little baby girl. Like, I was like, oh, they're going to talk about, like, because I think at some point they did mention, like, miscarriages and things like that, just randomly in the book, and I was like, oh, that's death of the child, not, like, sweet little baby getting run over at a step. No.
When that happened, I bawled my eyes out because one of my uncles like accidentally ran over this kid at this at the gas station in on my res, and so like it was just kind of like it brought that up, but then at the same time I was like, it's already happened and I know that it happened, so like I'm fine, but then like at the same time it was very like emotional because you're like, no.
I just love how this year we're gonna pick a light, fluffy book because the break hurt a lot to read, and then Heartbeat Braves was like a lot more dramatic than we thought it was gonna be, with like sad stuff, and now like I
You were
was
like,
expecting
light
something
fluffy book
fun.
my ass.
Yeah,
I mean, for the most part, it is light and fluffy, except for the one bad thing.
we're reading Fry Bread next year for the group.
Yes, that's great. That's fine. We can do that. We'll pick a children's book and just go with it. If they don't like it, that's just too bad. It's mostly most native children books are accessible, so.
This book was really good. There's a scene in this book. Oh goodness, it was so funny. But yeah, there is kind of like something sad that happens. Well, throughout the book, I think it's, but there's something that happened, like how it concludes. I wasn't expecting that, and well, there's like several things at the end, the ending that I wasn't expecting. But yeah, this one's a pretty good book. um I haven't read, you said you read Res Dogs. Was it by Joseph Brushak? Is that how you
Brushak,
say his
yeah.
name? Didn't he also write Skeleton Man?
Yes, he wrote Skeleton Man. He's
Have
written a
you?
lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read Skeleton Man. I heard about it because someone else, I was watching their booktube channel and they read that. And I was like, oh, I want to read that. But then when I looked him up, I was like, holy cow, look at all these books. So I didn't realize how he has a pretty big library.
and in so many different genres and age ranges too, because he's written like
Yeah.
YA dystopian, he's written like middle grade horror, he's done this historical fiction, like
Picture books.
mm, he's gotten through it.
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed it, and he also did the audiobook for Res Dogs, and I got it via volumes, and so I was like, I'm gonna read this and listen to it. So I was like, and then at some point, I didn't want to go too fast because I just wanted to like soak up his words, but at some point he was talking and I was reading like this. So I was like, I just want to get to the end and I want to find out what happens. Cause like Malion is a really like a headstrong little girl. I loved it.
Uh, Brody, Bear, I saw that you were also reading This Town Sleeps. So
Yes.
I checked it out.
What do you think about that one? Have you read that one, Michelle?
Have you read This Town Sleeps? It was
I
it was
own it though.
interesting.
So
Like
I
not
liked it.
yeah.
Um, I couldn't give it a high enough rating because I did DNF it like 3 times in the past like year and a half that I've tried to read it. But I think I ended up giving it like a 3.5. But I thought it reminded me a lot of The Remove too.
Yeah, it was I was kind of like, where is this going? You know? I mean, I like the characters. I feel like I was like, but what's going on? What's the whole and I just want to say like how it concluded is not where I thought it was headed. It was real. I was like, is there two? It almost felt like two books in one book. Um, and there was a part like how it concluded, and I was like, wait, who is this person? So I kind of had to rewind it because I was reading it by audiobook, and I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of was like making notes. But the characters are awesome, but it's just like, wait, there's like, is this a subplot? But it didn't feel like a subplot, it felt like a whole new book almost. Yeah, so that was probably the only complaint I had about it, was just that, because I really enjoyed where he talked about like his mom and then the other families, and I was like, okay, how are these melding together? Like, what's going on here? Like, what's the point? But when I found out like what was going on, I was like, oh, okay. So I was thinking maybe those stories coming together, in my opinion, weren't executed that well. But the characters were great. Like what was happening behind the scenes and how these characters were connected. And then the backstory was good, but it was just like, I just didn't, I mean, even myself, I didn't meld them together well. So I was like, I gave the same rating. I gave like a 3.75, or you said 3.5, right? I gave a 3.75 for that book as well.
Yeah, I just rounded it up to it. I don't do like half ratings on Goodreads. I'm just like it's either a 3 or it's a 4, and if it's like in the middle, then I just go up to 4.
So out of all of the books that you've read in the month of November, who is your favorite character and why? For me, it's Malion from Res Dogs because she's very headstrong. She's very she's very connected to her culture and she's very connected to her grandparents because she's there during the COVID pandemic. And so she's like she meets this dog. It's so wholesome, but also like she she knows how to like stick up for herself and like look out for her grandparents, which I just loved how like they I just loved how she like would say things about her grandparents, about how like what kind of people they are, and then also like little things that we learned about. Hi, Emma. Things that we learned about as like children and like how little we were when we learned about like residential schools or um like you know, really adult things that most like even by other BIPOC children and like white children don't have to know about, but we are exposed to at such a young age, is that like the way that she was introduced to it. I was like, wow, this is a lot for a little kid, because she's like, I think she's like 12, like 10 or 11 or 12. And for me, I'm like, oh yeah, but I remember learning about this when I was like 8 or something like that. So it's like, I loved her. And I also loved Donis from Firekeeper's daughter, because she's so smart and she's sporty, and she is like, I don't know, I just thought she was really cool. Like she'd be like the one cousin that would stick up for me, because I was like weird at that age. So
So I think, and this one kind of took me by surprise because at the start of reading The Removed, I did not enjoy all of the perspectives. The older sister Sonia, I didn't like her perspective very much at all. I found her to be kind of an annoying character because in this book, like Kim was talking about, we follow all these different family members who are dealing with grief in their own way. And Sonia's way that she deals with the death of her brother and like her other younger brother's drug abuse and her father's Alzheimer's and stuff, she's like created this fake obsessive relationship in her head with this dude, and she's like kind of stalking the dude and meeting his kid, and I was like, ooh, I don't like her, she's a little like, whatever. But at the end of the book, whenever you get her specific storyline wrapped up, I was just like, holy can I cuss on this channel? Holy fuck. I was like, Jesus, no, like it being the oldest child of 4 children or 5 children, I have 4 younger siblings, and having to like take care of, both of my parents whenever they were sick and going through it. Like I related a lot to Sonia, and I think that's why I didn't like her much at the beginning, because I was relating to her too much. Um, Not that I've ever stalked anyone, but I was like, I get you. And two, with it being like a Cherokee character I could relate to as well, that was also really cool. So she's probably my favorite.
yeah, like the whole like, I remember like as the oldest child, you are put in a, like in a position of power, or like matriarch or patriarchal or whatever, at such a young age. Like I was 7 when I changed my very first diaper and like started taking care of my little brothers, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like we are exposed to so many things at such a young age. And then like when you read about those kind of characters in literature, you're like, I hate it, but like I did that. So I get it.
I think I'm really happy you all included that one of the prompts be an ancestral perspective or protagonist, because those were all of my favorite protagonists. I read a lot of nonfiction, so I don't think you can choose a character in the nonfiction, but um, there's a character in this book. His name is August Gawawindi or something, but his perspective is told of him listing out his language, and then he would define the word and then his experience with that word or a memory. That was, oh, it's such genius. The writing in this book is so incredible too, and his perspective, I mean, you can see all the oppression, the violence, the just everything from his perspective, but also how he was able to hold on and experience that cultural the culture in his language, and how he was able to remember his language through experiences that he had in his life. Also, this perspective, which was I think it's pronounced Sala, which is the ancestral perspective, and it moves in a timeline where it starts with um, the Cherokee, like it talks about removal and then all of these things happening within the history. And I think many people would say, oh, that's him being a myth of like something that this vision he had of what was going to happen to the people. But I wouldn't call it that. I would very much call it a part of Cherokee history and oral history that they have experienced. So that was very powerful in this as well. The other one, and there's another ancestral perspective in this book that I really enjoyed. It was very sparse. It wasn't throughout the whole entire thing. It was there just, I think, to provide context to the characters, and also the land theft that happened before during this book, and how um, the protagonist's husband was very much a part of that whole history, not him himself, but his ancestors. And so that was really another perspective that I liked. And then this one, there was a character in here. He was a spider, and he was really funny. So that was another perspective. He was I think they call him Che, which is Navajo for grandpa on your, what was it? Is it your maternal side, Beth? Che? Is it Che mean grandpa on your mom's side? Yeah. On your mom's side. Oh, sorry, she's asking my husband, but it means grandpa on your mom's side. So everybody called him Che. So it was really cute, just hearing like those characters. Because I read part of this book by audiobook, but I mainly breezed through it just reading the actual physical book. But there's this part, I think there was this chapter where the spider was like talking to this little boy who's the main character. And the little boy is like, yeah, I know this magical place where you can go to live at, in the place that he names. It's just so funny. And all the spiders are cheering. They're like, yeah, they're all, it's really funny. It's so cute. And I was cracking up, and I was like, wow. And I could just see all that like happening in my head, especially because the area that he writes about is like the area I'm from. So it was really cool.
Awesome. I love that. Um, do you all have a favorite like Kim, you said your favorite was elder protagonist. Um, I don't know if I necessarily had a favorite prompt, because like all of them kind of like all seem to, like a lot of them had like indigenous joy in them, so that was probably my favorite. And um yeah, that, I think that was the only one that was like, yeah, this one's consistent, is the indigenous joy one.
My favorite prompt was favorite color on the cover because that was the easiest. Like, one thing that I really appreciated about this round was something Michelle and I talked about a lot at the start of it, was because last year was so intense because we were doing daily posts, we were doing, the giveaways that Kim you helped out with, and we were doing everything, we were taking donations. Like, this year I got to have fun. Like, I love doing this both years, but this was the first year that like I didn't feel stressed out to the point where I was like
It was so
so
chill.
anxious. Yes, it was so nice. So I'm like, favorite color on the cover, I can do that. I like lots of colors. We'll do a freaking rainbow. This one has rainbow all over the cover. We can count that. It was great. It was just a good time this year. It was very nice.
Yeah, for me, I think it was definitely that. Oh, hi, Bree. That ancestral protagonist or perspective, and then also nonfiction. I read so much nonfiction. It's I read, and then I read nonfiction outside of IndigAthon, which was, I read Hood Feminism by Mickey Kendall, and also Bad Fat Black Girl by Cicely Bowen, which was an incredible read. Everybody needs to read that book. It is so good. I read Lakota Woman by Mary. I think her name's Mary Bravebird, but on the book it's Mary Crow Dog. Mine Spread Out on the Ground by Alicia Elliott. And even though these are all poetry books, there's a lot of like personal experience and nonfiction elements in their poetry. I think Eyes Bottle Dark with a Mouthful of Flowers by Jake Skeets. This is an incredible read. Jake Skeets is a Diné author. Indian Coping Mechanisms by Billy Ray Belcourt, incredible. Dissociate or Disintegrate, Dissociate by Ariel Twist, who is a, I think I don't remember where she's from. George Gordon First Nation, Saskatchewan. So yeah, pretty awesome. Heartbeat of Wounded Knee. I think everybody should read this book instead of what was the other Wounded Knee book called?
Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee.
Yeah, read this instead of that. Definitely. I also, I yeah. So I think nonfiction and the ancestral or elder protagonist. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, everybody. I was just gonna ask that because like everybody that participated this year was so great. Like, I think I remember telling Bear. Well, Bear told me, and we were like just gonna tell each other, but that one person that was like, "Oh yeah, I'm planning on reading like 56 things." I watched that person's like 40-minute wrap up. They read so much. It was great. I was so proud. And then I had a thing and I just lost it. But like did anybody read like did any of you read a book that was like either recommended by each other or like somebody read your recommendation, cuz like that was cool too to see this month. And like all of the people that like Andrea from Penguin Stories, like she made fry bread in one of her vlogs. I love that.
I think Bethany read one of my recommendations. I don't know if it was for IndigAthon or if it was last month, but I feel like I remember her saying something about me recommending a Tommy Pico and her really liking it. And then Kim, like you said, you read one of my recommendations. That was really cool. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like this year was a lot more fun, and like the participation this year from everyone was really cool to see. Like we had like playlists made of TBR videos, and I even got tagged a couple of times on TikTok, and I was like, we don't even do IndigAthon content on TikTok, but people are over there talking about it.
Yeah,
And
that was so fun to see. Like, oh, somebody so and so tagged you in a thing. I was like, what is this? This is not another like weird scam thing that I was tagged in. This is a legit video. What?
yeah,
And like
it was
somebody
just
was
very
like
nice.
somebody was going hardcore on, like somebody was fighting hardcore for us on somebody's video about hunting by the stars. And this person was like, well, why aren't they getting like these things, like why are they not getting the attention they deserve? I was like,
Maybe
thank
because
you.
none of us got arcs for it. Maybe because some of us were promised arcs for it and didn't get them. I'm gonna mute myself now.
Oh yay, that is a good book. I liked it.
Yeah, I had all of you guys. I think for the IndigAthon account, I had a notification for everything. So whenever I saw someone get tagged or someone tag you all and then you share it. But I think another thing that I really enjoyed is just seeing the the diverse amount of reads that everybody had. So sometimes I was adding those stories that you guys were sharing to like a future TBR that I have saved under my IndigAthon account or under my Instagram account that says like IndigAthon TBR Rex or whatever. I think usually around this time too, because November is a pretty busy month for me. I'll go back and I'll create a whole playlist of all of the IndigAthon videos that I see, and just hearing everybody's experiences with their reads and is something that I always look forward to too.
I totally had a thing and I was like, whoop. Oh, the other fun thing that I saw was like um Connor, my friend Connor, because like I remember seeing his TBR, and he was like, yeah, I'm just gonna be reading some of Michelle's favorites, and like, this is one of Michelle's favorites, and this is one of Michelle's favorites, and this is one of Michelle's favorites. I was like, you gotta read something else, bud. And then like did it a whole like vlog about it, and I was like, I feel so like, and then seeing like other people do it too, it's just like, it's so weird to see people being influenced by something that I said, and because like it was not this way, like, you know, like even last year or the year before that, where like maybe one person would read something that I recommended, and not like, you know, you have like these throws of people that are like, oh, I read this because of you, and I read this because of the bear, and I read this because of Kim, and like all of these other people that are in the community. And I'm just like, props to everyone for being so cool.
Yeah, I kind of want to go back to what Kim was saying a minute ago about like seeing all of the diversity on people's TBR, because I think it's very important to talk about the fact that even though this is like IndigAthon, right, and we read indigenous authors and stuff, like being very specific about tribes and like sovereignty and stuff is very important. And I noticed a lot more this year, like people, instead of just saying, oh, and this is like a native book, they would like mention the author's tribe. And, you know, I think the land acknowledgement prompt really helped open people's eyes on stuff like that. Because like all three of us have talked about this before, about how oftentimes like Native Americans are viewed as a monolith. And it really felt like this year we kind of like got away from that, and people were like educating themselves more. And also just reading outside of the U.S. too. That was something I noticed a lot. There were a lot of like South American and you know, colonial Australian and stuff like that. It was really cool to see people like branch out of just, you know, reading like the same like 5 authors.
I
Also,
really,
I
yeah.
did not know
Oh,
that right there.
I saw it
Also,
on
sorry I
IG.
interrupted.
Yeah, I saw that on IG, and I was like, hey, what? Because usually I watched a video of all the awesome booktubers. They were like, I think Bethany was one, and then Jess Owens, and just everybody else, just talking about like who made it. I think I was like, wow, this book won. I was like, what? But it was really interesting how even like a lot of people wanting that book and not knowing what it was about, and then automatically assuming because of the book cover it was an indigenous fantasy. And I was like, no, like, do you know what this book is about? And they're like, I don't know, I don't care, I can't wait to read it. So I think, yeah, so that I thought that was really interesting to have people say that about Firekeeper's daughter. I'm like, no, it's not a fantasy. It's a fiction. It's a young adult fiction novel. And they're like, oh, I thought it was a fantasy because of the cover. And I was like, no, it's a fiction book, a YA. But yeah, it's really not fantasy though. Yeah, it's definitely not fantasy. But I really appreciated that you guys did the land acknowledgement. And also, was it read a book from whose land you're on or which community is near you? That was really awesome to see people sharing. Oh, I'm reading this book. This author is from this territory, which is where I'm at. So I thought that was really cool too. What's that, son? Yeah, I'm sorry. I was
Yeah,
talking to
I
my son.
saw a lot of people working like really hard to actually, like, even authors that weren't popular from some of the TBRs I saw, where they were like, "Oh, I don't know, this is, I don't know where to find this or whatever, but like I'm going to order it, or I'm going to get it from here, or like find it at an indie bookstore." And then of course we had some complications with the like the UK people that were like, I don't know what to read for this. I'm like, you can either skip it, or you can just like read someone from like, you know, a neighboring wherever. And somebody was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna read this blah 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 thing from this place. And so I was like, thank you.
I think something that's really interesting too, with everyone thinking Firekeeper's daughter is fantasy. Do y'all run into? I'm sure you've seen it, where people will take like an indigenous authored like contemporary or lit fic or whatever, and they say it's fantasy because of like the native spirituality in it. Where they're like, oh well, that
Magical
makes it,
realism.
yeah, or they're like
Magical realism
fabulism.
makes me want to punch people in the face. Like, it's like, no, just because it has one element of like talking about like spirituality and like seeing spirits or like feeling like more empathetic feelings, like, does not mean that it's magical realism.
I see it a lot with people talking whenever there are like scenes with like ancestors. It's like, oh, this that makes it like paranormal, and like, not really, guys. Like, let's nix that in the butt.
Yeah, and I think also like you can have different definitions of what those things mean depending, I mean, by nation and by community. I think some of the things that I see, especially in Indigenous authored lit, when, like for instance, for Firekeeper's daughter was the little people, and people thought that was a magical realism element, and I'm like, no, I like in those things really, or those people or those spirits or whatever, I don't know if they're a spirit, but within my own community, those uh, I don't even know what to call them, except by what language we have, is they really exist. And the experiences that I've had during ceremony, or even before ceremony or after, or just me walking to the trash can to throw something out, are very, very real. I mean, even right now, our month, this month, December, is Gamoya, which is like a not really a scary time, but it's a time of respect. We don't go outside when it's dark because it's a time of the year where the ground is thinner. So if that's the case, then we see the spirit, the line between the spirit world and those who have passed and our world is it's thinner. So we have to have respect right now. That's why there's not singing, there's not drumming, but also this is a very awesome time for us, where history um, is carried on. There's a lot of storytelling around wintertime and how we learn where we're from or where our clans are from, or a story behind some element, like why is it that uh, why is it that this animal looks the way it does, or so I feel like those elements of indigenous writing, maybe they do get mislabeled because it's only because white or western world wants to put a label on something, or or maybe they want to say this is fiction, or this is not real, or this is fantasy, because then that justifies the hurting of land, or the hurting of a peoples, or saying that indigenous religions and practices are um, savage, or they're whatever. So I feel like sometimes Western society really does want to put a label on things, or say that it's magic, but in reality, those things are very much a part of our daily lives and our daily living.
Do you have any additional thoughts on that, Bear?
Well, just that I was gonna say, like when I was reading Goodreads reviews for Apple, like I even saw people labeling it like speculative magical realism and stuff because of the like the memory flashes that she has, and I'm like, that's not, spirituality does not equate,
I'd say that's
like,
more of like a really like an empathy thing,
yeah.
honestly. Like, that's like a strong amount of empathy to where she like gets these, I wouldn't, like, she gets these like twinges, like,
Mhm.
it's more along the lines of like not quite like a medium, but like in that area.
Yeah, it's like a feeling, like a little like,
Yeah, because occasionally you do get that one aunt that like just is around you and is like, oh, so you're going through this, huh? And you're like, I never said anything to anybody.
right.
How do you know that? You're freaking me out.
Like there are things that like I've had happen to me at like powwows and stuff that like with people who at the time were a lot more in touch with that than I was, and they would like tell me things that I had never told anyone, and I'm like, how do you know this? So it's like it's a real thing. It's not like a fantasy thing, like what Kim was saying. Like people often want to label it fantasy or speculative or fabulistic or whatever. It kind of like I don't know, feels like a very loaded thing that I. That's my one critique from this year is that I wish people would think about more is like their words when discussing Native spirituality. But like as people who aren't Native, I understand that they might not understand that. You know, I think it's just like an education thing, and people should educate themselves a little bit better on it.
Yeah, and it's probably I think sometimes when I even try to explain certain parts of the story or literature, especially if it's fiction. But a lot of the times the author very much draws on those things from their own personal experiences and things that they, or even some stories that have been passed down to them that maybe happened to their aunts or their grandfathers or whatever. So I feel like it's hard to um, kind of say like, oh yeah, this is fiction, it's not real, or it's made up. But I feel like those elements are still very alive and thriving in our communities, especially when it comes to culture. So, and I feel, and now like when I read, especially Black authored lit, I try to approach those things a little bit differently. Especially when I read in October, I read Ring Shout, and a lot of people were saying folklore and myths and legends, and I was like, but I didn't really see it that way. I thought that those things are very, very much a part of a group of peoples and what they experience, and is likely to still be a part of their cultures today. So it was really hard for me to review that book because I was like, it's not really a myth, it's very much a part of the daily living of a people's.
There's a lot of really interesting things happening in there in the chat down there, which is hard. It's hard for me to I don't know. It's hard for me to like talk about, like necessarily talk about, because like I'm not I'm not traditional, and I wasn't like raised with the not like all of the cultural knowledge. So like some of that is lost on me, but like the way that it was explained to me growing up is that like some of these things are very real, like some of these experiences, or like, you know, things that you're not supposed to do, like eat in the dark or like whistle at night, or like all of these things that you're taught as a child are very 100% real. Like don't look outside when it's dark, or like don't do this. Like all of these things that you're taught are so very real that trying to explain them to someone that was not raised around it or grew up, or like reconnecting even, or um like some of these things are just really hard to explain because some people take it like so uh like um like they have to have a explanation for everything.
Yeah, and I think it's perfectly fine to say, well, I don't know what to label this. Yeah, but maybe just talk about your experience with the book and how it affected you. I feel like sometimes I even get caught up on trying to label what kind of book it is, or so now when I review a book, I don't really talk a whole lot about or get caught up with a lot of labeling. I just talk about my experience with the read, and how I enjoyed the writing and their perspectives. And so, but when it comes to culture, especially when it's from a community that I'm not from, I just like there's parts where I get lost, and I'm like, okay, I don't understand this, but it's not going to change my rating. I think it's just trying to give me um, but I wonder how much more powerful this read would be if I was from this community, or if I saw myself in this book, if it was speaking on experiences that I've experienced. So I think that's always something that I kind of get excited about, and that's why I always try to find people who are from that community and who review that book. So I kind of get like more of a context of what was going on, maybe with a specific part or chapter or whatever.
Yeah, I got you. Was there okay, so like is there anything that was on your TBR that you did not get to, but like I'll get to it? And when you say that, you mean that like either it's going to be this month or it's going to be sometime in the month of 2022. I'm not attacking you, Bear. I promise. I love you so so much. For me, it was like Darcy, Little Badgers, every like because I got uh a snake falls to earth and a lad's away, and I was like, I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna read this like a month after month. It's been on my TBR and I haven't read it yet. And I don't know. I'm just like waiting for a moment where I'm like, I promise I'm actually gonna read this. And then that was me with also with the Healer of the Water Monster and a sea in winter. I was going to read that, but then somebody mentioned that there was depression in it, and I was like, no, I'm doing really good. I'll get to it. I will get to it. I promise.
We know that I can't stick to TBRs, but the one that really hurt, quit laughing at me. The one that really hurt this month that I didn't get to finish was The Witch King, and I did start it, and I got about 150 pages in, and I was just like, I'm not in the mood for like a high fantasy situation right now. And I had other things that I like had to prioritize, like a readathon, and then like Apple in the Middle, and then my Patreon thing. So The Witch King kind of got pushed to the side, but I do plan on finishing it before the end of the year because like I'm more than halfway through it, so I have to finish it. But
And
that
the
was the
cover to
one.
his second book is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't read, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I didn't read 3 books. One was a memoir by Richard Wagamise, but I ended up reading Richard Wagamise because Aaron and Danny's book club, the Indigenous Reading Circle, they recently read One Native Life. So I was going through reviews of people who were in the book club who participated in the discussion, and I was just like, I need to read that. And then also Sean from Sean the Book Maniac also recommended that book, so I was like, I really want to get to this. So I ended up reading that instead of For Joshua. Also, I was supposed to read A Snake Falls to Earth as well, but I didn't get to it because I felt like I was on a roll with a lot of these literary fiction reads and also the nonfiction. It was amazing how much nonfiction I was reading during the month of November. I need to read more. Just that's it. I just need to read more nonfiction. And then the next book that I didn't get to was As We Have Always Done by Leanne Patassimosake Simpson, which is also a nonfic. I think it's a collection of essays, and I just ran out of time, so I'm actually reading that right now. And yeah, so that's probably a book I'm gonna either like just slowly take my time with because it is a lot. It's a very, in my opinion, a very intellectual read, and those types of reads I have to slow down. I take usually a lot of notes with those kinds of reads as well. So, but yeah, and but I picked up a lot of mood reads throughout November.
I also did not get to A Snake Falls to Earth. It was sent unsolicited, and like unsolicited books take like a back burner for me. Even though like I love Darcy and I'm gonna read it, I was like, oh, I need to review things, that were sent to me that I asked for. So like if all three of us haven't read it and we all need to read it, we can like buddy read it or something. I'm down for that. Like, why not?
Same.
Yeah, I don't mind. Let me know.
I mean, we already have the group chat going, so.
It's true. It's true. We do. We do. Um, Bear, do you have any questions for Ed things?
Not really. I feel like we covered pretty much everything. Um, if you post wrap ups, make sure you tag us on the wrap ups so that we can see them, because I know some people haven't gotten their like November stuff done yet. But yeah, just like follow us on the Instagram. And unfortunately, our Twitter's out of commission. We don't know what happened. Someone reported us for being like a fake account. So our Twitter's out. Instagram is in. Yeah, just follow us on there. There's potential for like a weekend round somewhere between now and next November. We've been talking about that for a couple years. So just, keep up to date and just keep reading native books, just,
There
do
were
your
so
thing.
many daily posts that were amazing. I was having a hard time keeping up. I was like, share this, like it, share, like it, share, like it, share. Oh God, there's 6 more. Okay, I'm fine. We're good.
And also to Michelle, because I just want to say, like, for a second, like, Michelle did almost everything on the Instagram this time, made all of the graphics, did a lot of the sharing and stuff. So, like, the MVP this round really just, like, killed it.
You're gonna make me freaking cry.
Yeah, I really enjoyed everything, you all. Brody, Michelle, you guys are rock stars. You guys are amazing, and I really appreciate you doing this every year. Is this what, the fourth year?
Third year.
Yeah, and I always look forward to November. And I just want to say thank you so much. I had such a good time, and to everybody else, like, read Indigenous Lit all year long, all year round. I think IndigAthon is just really awesome because it's a time for me to really just find out what everybody's reading, and then also like, oh, I haven't read that, I haven't heard of that author. So it's really a time for me to just get and write down new authors I haven't discovered yet either.
The TBRs were amazing this year. Like, I didn't even get to watch all of them, but some of them I was like, oh my gosh, like, people actually used Google and, like, not just Goodreads.
I do have one question before we go. So, like, you know how, like, with both years we've done this so far, there's been a book that, like, everyone seems to pick up that's not the group book. Like, I think in 2019 it was, well, we did the break, but it was something, and then, like, last year it was everyone was reading The Only Good Indians.
I think everybody was reading Rebecca Roanhorse.
It was either that or, like, Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah.
Like, in 2019, everyone read Johnny Appleseed. In 2020, everyone read The Only Good Indians. So, like, what was the 2021 book? Because I didn't see a whole lot of common threads outside of, like, middle grade.
I think that the common book was either Notable Native People or Firekeeper's Daughter, just because that was like, and I think like Fry Bread was one of them, and like, let me look at my shelf.
Yeah, I saw a Lots Away a lot on everybody's sharing
I
a
saw
Lots
that one last year
Away.
too.
Yeah, and also what was it? Firekeeper's Daughter, definitely. I don't know about the. Oh, and then Black Sun. I saw Black Sun a lot.
Yeah.
Winter Counts, I saw a lot last year too. Michelle's Impact.
My favorite
Braiding
book.
Sweetgrass.
Yeah, I saw that one too. I think Audrey also read the book before that one, with the one about moss. I was like, oh, I did not know that Robin Wall Kimmerer wrote a book before Braiding Sweetgrass.
Yeah, Gathering Moss.
Of course, I'm not really good at like looking at things like before like the one book that I've heard of. Ren also is like has been talking about his book a lot, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait for February. I cannot wait till it comes out. And like, and he also is like, oh, you should read this book and you should read that book, and I'm like, most of these people are from Canada. I will get to it, I promise.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's interesting to see like what people are picking up that's like popular for the month. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I think Sage also read Braiding Sweetgrass, or it was another. I think it was a Cli-Fi for the Cli-Fi book club thing. Yeah, but I had a lot of fun like looking and like seeing what people were doing like outside of it, because like I just remember being like, you can do other things, like you can listen to music or watch TV or like watch different things on YouTube, and like I actually saw like people actually doing those things, like thank God.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that this was the first year we didn't have the non-bookish media prompt, but it was the first year I actually saw people consuming like non-bookish media. I thought that was really funny. But yeah, outside of that, I don't really have anything left. Thank you to Kim for being like the MVP
Yes,
participant
Kim was
and
the
like honorary
MVP of being like,
co-host.
hey, are you guys participating? Like, is everybody doing something? You better be doing something.
Yeah, I was hyped. I was so excited. I'm gonna
And
have
also for
a
like
theme song next
organizing the
time.
giveaways and all of that. You know, Kim's just like pulled through.
For reals.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll be posting what the giveaway items are on IG, and then I'll definitely tag you guys.
That'd be great. Let's see. Do I have anything else? Not really. But this is what my journal spread looked like. It's
That's
a big
cute.
one. Yeah. And then, because like the Avengers Initiative, it was Drax, Mantis, and Okoye. So, and then this was the actual spread for that. Very long list.
Awesomeness.
But yeah, I'll be totally up for a children's book next year. No death, no accidental this, no accidental that, just good, wholesome thing that happens, no one sad.
Yeah, we'll have to do some research because I'm looking
We
at my
will.
stuff and everything's sad.
I recently picked up is his name David Robertson's The Barren Grounds? I
Yes, I
can't
read
wait
that
to.
this month.
Did you like it?
I loved it. It was the first one I gave 5 stars all month.
Oh, okay. I just barely got it. Like, and I got the second book. I can't remember what the second book is called, but I'm excited to read it. I have it, but it's way over there in my room.
I was looking for it before I started the live, and I can't find it anywhere because I flipped all my books around backwards. So
Not to plug her again, but like we could read Jojo McCoons
oh my
by Don
god.
Quigley. The second one comes out next year. JK. We'll figure something out.
Yeah, I haven't read Fry Brett yet either. My friend, she got it for her was it her niece or her nephew? But yeah, I was like, oh, I want that. Or we could do a comic or a graphic novel. Or not we. I mean, you guys. I mean, I'll read with you.
Honestly, we'll take suggestions, really.
Yeah, I don't know. I've already started looking and thinking of prompt ideas and stuff for next year.
We will have to brainstorm. Okay. So, do we have any more comments, any more thoughts, any more stuff happening?
No,
Anything
but
that you anything that you two want to plug, or like what's going on? What is in next for the world of Kim and Bear?
At my Patreon, if you want to follow my Patreon, that's there. $5 a month or more get you a monthly book club. I'm running Read by Daylight. That's coming back in January. The Last Great American Readathon. God, I run so many freaking readathons. Both of those are happening. I don't know. Just come hang out with me if you want spooky shit.
Yeah, I'll actually be in another live on Sunday along with on Jess Owens' page to discuss braiding sweetgrass, and that is 11 a.m. Mountain Standard. So I don't know what time it would be on everybody else's, or it says on here 7 p.m. CET. What is that? What is CET? And maybe in the other side of the world, or
Central Standard Time.
oh no, it says CET and it says PM, but it's like it's 11 a.m. my time. So I don't know, but yeah, y'all drop by.
I will also link like the channels below when I get to edit things, cause yeah, I didn't really so really cool that we had like 7 people donate to their respective organizations and to like wherever. There was 7 or 9. I think it was like 9 as far as I remember. But yeah, that was really cool to see. Wish it would have been more, but that's okay. And so I still have to send out the bookmark, but at some point I will have these available for purchase when I get enough. So also I'm going to send them out to you too when I get more. But this was fun to do.
How much are they?
I haven't figured out a price yet.
Okay. Message me, or I guess whenever you do a post. But I want to buy a few.
Yes, that would be great. So yeah, look out for that, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a book. We're gonna make a bookmark, and then it was like, oh yeah, I got all the titles that I wanted to put down, and I was like, but there's more titles, so I just kept going. So yes, look out for that. And congratulations to the winners for winning, for just being there. Other than that, I have nothing else. How about you two?
Thank you for reading with us.
Yeah.
Thank you for hanging out.
Alrighty. So I think we're gonna head out now. So yeah, I don't know how to close this out, because usually I go on like a little tangent about life, but I got nothing today. It's the SpongeBob theme song in my head right now, so yeah, I'm just gonna end it like this. So everybody wave. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.